Well, hey there, everybody. This is Mr. Perry, and it's time to talk about the basics of essays in AP language. All right, so you should have your notes sheet in front of you, and the first thing we're going to do is talk about the three basic types of essays that you need to know for this class. All right, and they are as follows. We're going to start with argumentation. This is the first essay type that you need to know for my class. This is your basic essay. Essentially, all essays are argumentative essays, right? Whether it's a literary analysis where you're arguing that a certain aspect of literature means something important, or if you're just kind of arguing a claim in general for like the SAT or really any English class. You've probably been writing argumentative essays since elementary or certainly in middle school. A lot of people think of the argumentative essay as a 5-paragraph essay, so you've probably been taught that structure in the past. And that is certainly something you can fall back on for this class, but I'm also going to encourage you to kind of think outside of that structure or maybe above that structure. So we'll look at different examples of how that works. But essentially, an argumentation or an argumentative essay is where you state a claim. Okay, that's definitely got to be there. You have to claim something, and you can think of this as your thesis statement. And then you need to develop that claim or that thesis with relevant and convincing evidence. Okay, and when we talk about relevant and convincing evidence, that can be from your own personal experience. It can be from your background, your observations, things that you've witnessed. It could be things that you've read from the past. It could be just kind of general knowledge about the world and about, society. But in order to form an effective argumentative essay, you've just got to make sure that you have a strong, clear claim or thesis, and that you develop that appropriately with relevant and convincing evidence. So there you are. That's your kind of basic essay level that you need to know for the class. The second type of essay is called a synthesis essay, all right? And when you break the word synthesis, if you've ever heard of people synthesizing things, what it means is syn means same by its root, and then thesis, when you break it down by the roots, means to put forth. So it means to put forth a claim that is similar to what maybe other people have said. So essentially, a synthesis essay is an argumentative essay, so everything we said up here, except now we're going to use quotes and evidence from other reliable academic sources. So what this means is you're going to make a claim about a topic or an idea, and then you're going to develop that claim by not only using personal experience or observations, things you know and have seen about the world, but you're also going to supplement that with quotes and evidence from sources, okay? So the easiest way to look at a synthesis essay is it's an argumentative essay where I'm going to use quotes, or at the very least, I'm going to maybe paraphrase evidence and include evidence. But there you go, all right? So that's a synthesis essay. And then the last one, the one that's probably newest for most people their junior year, is what's called a rhetorical analysis, all right? Now, rhetoric, we already know what rhetoric is because we took our notes on that last week, all right? It's how a person uses language to communicate ideas and to form arguments. And we know we can break that down by the writer's ethos and then pathos and logos. We can look at use of logical reasoning and emotional appeals, things of that nature. But analysis, when we look at this word analysis and break this up by the roots, ana means back or up, and then lysis means break. So to analyze something means to break it up, okay? So rhetorical analysis is breaking up or breaking apart another person's use of rhetoric. So the definition is analyzing and describing another author's use of rhetoric to make an argument. That's the third type of essay that you need to know for my class, all right? When you sit to take the AP exam in May, these are the 3 essay types that are going to be given to you, all right? You'll end up having 2 hours and 15 minutes to write 3 essays. One will be a synthesis, one will be a rhetorical analysis, and one will be an argumentative or argumentation, all right? So there you go, the 3 types of essays and what they mean. Now let's talk about how you get scored with these types of essays. So in my class, there are essentially 5 different categories that are used to create a score. The first category is called content and ideas, all right? So content refers to what you're putting in your argument and how much you're bolstering your argument with, evidence and observations. Ideas, again, basically the main ideas that kind of drive the essay and drive the argument forward, okay? So in order to score well in content and ideas, all paragraphs have to be well developed. So that includes the introduction, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion. You want them to be well developed, which basically means enough evidence, enough development, there's enough words and sentences to fully form the main point. All right, so what that means is you want to avoid being too short or underdeveloped with your paragraphs. When you get to your body paragraphs, each body paragraph will have a main point, and those main points need to be supported with multiple details and thoroughly explained. So we're not only including details, but we're explaining those details, we're making connections, we're building one idea upon another, all right? And again, just making sure that the essay has a good flow of ideas from beginning to end. And then here we go again, strong overall flow of ideas from the intro all the way down to the conclusion. I can see, again, how the ideas build upon one another, basically the essay needs to have evidence that you thought through the argument before actually writing it. Okay, it's one of the reasons why we need to be mindful to do good pre-writing. So now we're in organization. The second category that you get scored on in this class is organization, and this is the one you're probably most familiar with. Basically, it means you have an introduction, you have body paragraphs, and you have a conclusion. But in AP, it's a little bit different. We're looking for maybe a creative or a unique approach to an introduction, all right? Kind of avoiding the standard generalizations that a lot of students tend to use. A thesis statement that surpasses high school level. All right, so we're going to dig into this next week. We're going to talk about thesis statements and what we consider a quote-unquote stereotypical high school level thesis statement versus one that rises to the level of college writing. Multiple body paragraphs exploring various main points. So again, there should be clear body paragraphs that are separated from one another. And again, should be multiple main points and therefore multiple body paragraphs. And then finally, a conclusion that matches the introduction in power, style, and language. All right, you want to start your essay with a creative and unique introduction, and whatever you do in the intro, you want to make sure you bring that in the conclusion as well. All right, you want to maintain that level of power and style and forceful language and things of that nature. Okay. So again, don't think of this as merely a 5-paragraph essay with an intro, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Sometimes an essay needs to have more than 5 paragraphs. Sometimes it needs 8 or 9, depending. You can sometimes get away with even less. There have been some high-scoring essays that have only had 4 paragraphs. But again, it depends on the writer. It depends on the argument being made. Okay, the next category of scoring in my class is called word choice and sentence variety. All right, so here's where it gets a little bit trickier. Here's where we spend a lot of time in this class developing word choice and sentence variety. This is a big part of AP language. So the first thing we're going to look at is the difference between formal versus informal language. We're going to spend a lot of time getting into slang or cliche ideas, or what are called colloquialisms. Those are terms we're going to get to fairly soon. So to score well in word choice and sentence variety, you want to write with a formal and an academic tone. All right. So there is that, and then the word choice throughout the essay, especially the verbs that you use, you want to make them strong upper level vocabulary. Effective sentence variety. This again is something we're going to get into in the class. We're going to use the word fluency. We're going to talk about the benefits of having long sentences as well as short sentences, and not using the same sentence types over and over and over again. And then finally, it's expected that you're going to use transitions, regular use of transitions, especially when you're in the body paragraphs and then you get into the conclusion. Again, transitions just sort of help the essay have that good flow of ideas. So transitions, again, important. Okay, and then next, the easy one is grammar and spelling, effective grammar and word usage, and no spelling or punctuation problems. So, again, we're going to need to talk about proofreading in here. Obviously we want to try to make sure that we understand the rules of grammar and that we're continuing to figure out how the language works and whether or not we put, commas versus periods or colons and semicolons or even hyphens and dashes. There's just all kinds of different punctuation marks and all kinds of different sentence structures that we need to get into. And again, you want to make sure that you're confident with those. So this obviously comes down to the proofreading and revising stage. And we will just continue to try to build upon our skills throughout. And then one thing that I think is really unique to AP Lang is this last category. When we're scoring essays, we're looking for basically the thinking and the perspective that kind of drives the argument. So critical thinking or unique perspective is the last category that you get scored on. And what that means is that the writing demonstrates a deep level of critical thinking. It's the argument that's being made and the ideas that are being presented show that the writer spent a lot of time thinking very critically about the prompt, about weighing kind of the pros and the cons, or maybe the moral and ethical issues, and bringing that to the table in the argument. And this can be tricky. Some of us are pretty good at doing this, and some of us, it takes a little bit of time to sort of develop this level of critical thinking. And here's where the independent reading really comes into play, all right, when we talk about trying to do well in this area. The more we read, especially the more we read other authors who demonstrate this level of critical thinking, the more we can start to see how it works, and we can start also trying to think that way ourselves. The essay offers interesting and intriguing ideas. It's the kind of writing where, I start to say, I never thought about that before, or again, you can just kind of tell that the writer is going for something that is sort of beyond sort of the standard way of thinking about a topic or an idea. And then probably the trickiest thing is to avoid cliche statements or cliche ideas. Again, deep level of critical thinking and having a unique perspective means that I can kind of hear your personality, and I can kind of hear your individual sort of voice in the writing, and it doesn't just kind of blend in with a lot of the other stereotypical statements that people would make about a topic or an idea. So this is the last area that we get scored in, and one of the more trickier areas to do well on. So there you go. That is scoring the essays, the 5 categories, what they are, and how to do well. So now if you flip the sheet over, we're going to look at the basic essay structure, and I'm going to just kind of break this down bit by bit with you. So again, don't be fooled by how this looks. When you look at the sheet in general, it does kind of look like a 5-paragraph essay, but remember, that's just kind of the basic structure. You are always encouraged to kind of think outside of that or beyond that. But really, any essay needs to kind of have a certain structure to it, and I like this visual model. This has always kind of helped me understand the way essays should be written. So the introduction paragraph is like a funnel. As you can see, it's shaped like a funnel, and that's because the idea is you want to try to catch as many people as possible with the opening sentence. You really want to intrigue anybody who's anybody, no matter their age, background, whatever. You want to try to get that person's attention with the first couple of sentences, and then you slowly want to try to lead that person towards your thesis statement, which is your central argument on the topic, and it's something very specific. It's going to be kind of based on your opinion or based on what you think about a topic, based on your experiences and your learning. So the opening statement about your topic, use a recommended introduction strategy if possible. And I'm going to direct you to where you can find those in a minute. But try to start with a unique and powerful opening statement about that topic, right? And then from there, you want to elaborate on that, maybe with some general details about the topic. And then by the time we get to the end, you want to be addressing the central prompt and clearly stating your thesis statement, okay? So there you go. Opening statement using a recommended introduction strategy, elaborating on that and giving some general details, and then finally getting to your thesis statement at the end, preferably a college level thesis statement, which again, we will break down next week. From there, you get to your body paragraphs, and here is, I think, where you'll see a slight difference from what you've been taught in the past, okay? Body paragraphs are kind of like blocks, kind of like rectangles here. You make a main point with your topic sentence, and then you use what's called the extended body paragraph structure, which is essentially to elaborate on that main point with a sentence or two, and then get to some evidence and then explaining the evidence. And then you want to include at least one mid-paragraph transition. All right, so again, you've got a transitions really throughout the paragraph, but at least one in the middle. And then again, continuing to elaborate on your details and your examples, and then finally getting to a concluding sentence. Okay, so we'll go over the extended body paragraph structure later, but for right now, just know, okay, I've got my main point, my topic sentence. I want to follow the extended body paragraph structure, have that mid-paragraph transition, and then end with a concluding sentence. And then you just repeat that structure for your next main point. You would repeat it for the third main point, all right? Notice using transitions throughout. All right, when you get to the body paragraphs, here's where you want to start using transitions really as often as possible. Certainly wherever they are appropriate. You want them at the beginning of the paragraphs. You want them at least one in the middle, and maybe even one or two more, depending on what it is that you're getting into. So you repeat it here, repeat the body paragraph structure as necessary until you've thoroughly argued your thesis statement. And then you get to your conclusion paragraph. All right. Now, the conclusion paragraph is very much like the introduction paragraph turned upside down. All right, as you'll see, it's got that reverse funnel shape. So the first thing you want to do is restate your thesis statement. You take that thesis that you had in the introduction, all right, and you want to repeat the ideas, but you don't want to repeat the entire statement word for word. Okay, so you want to take whatever your central claim was, that thesis statement, you want to reword it, restate the ideas, but make sure that you are also rewording it. Okay. From there, you want to touch upon some of the important main points that you made in the body paragraph, and then you want to end with some final thoughts. All right, and there's a couple of different ways that you can approach doing this. But one thing that I always try to impress upon with my students is to mirror your introduction strategy if possible. So if we go back up to your opening statement and it says use a recommended intro strategy if possible, whatever strategy you choose to use to get us into this introduction, you want to take some of those ideas and take some of those keywords, and you want to include them in your final couple of sentences as well. And this is what's called bringing the essay full circle, okay? Again, it's an idea that we will explore in class a little bit further. So if you're following the instructions on the sheet, it says now go ahead and head to the Writing Center. So I'm going to bring you to the class website. We're going to head down to the Writing Center. And then as you can see, there's two links down here based on introductions. All right, so while the notes are kind of fresh on your brain, go ahead and check out what are the recommended introduction strategies that you see here. All right, they've got a bunch of different strategies, and then they give an example paragraph for each. So see how they work, kind of work through them. What you're looking for is to see which of these methods you are already familiar with, and to see which ones are kind of new to you. And as always, our goal is to try to find some that we want to try using in class, all right? Also make sure you look at where it says introductions to avoid, all right? Look at, what are sort of the lame cliche ways of starting an essay that we want to avoid, and try to concentrate on these more upper level ones. I really like this second one, thoughtco.com. This one has a lot of really interesting introductions, and these are by professional writers and all that stuff. So I would definitely take a bit of time and read through these as well, because there's some pretty good stuff. All right, well, that's it for your essay notes.